It's the nicest thing Gordy's ever said about me.
Ask for a raise.
I'm not kidding. That's literally the nicest thing I've ever said. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Admittedly, I'm a little embarrassed. When Mr. Mike asked me to speak, I thought I was invited here to share my thesis on fixing Baton Rouge traffic, but apparently all you want to hear about is sports. So I guess I'll just stick to what I do best. First, though, Gordy, every Monday we have a Monday morning meeting at Guarantee, and he let everybody in our organization know this morning that me being here today is the first time, and Guarantee just celebrated its 90th anniversary last year. First time that anybody from Guarantee has been invited to speak here at the Rotary meeting. So for an organization that's been around 100 years, yours, and Guarantee, which has been around for 90 years, it really is my honor to represent Guarantee here today, and I thank you all very much for the invitation. I also like to recognize Mr. Bridger Eglin, who's the former president of Guarantee Group. It's very nice to see you, and Jason McKenzie in the back, who also works with us. Jason is a Mississippi State grad. So this is a very intriguing week, obviously, around our building with Jason. You want to wave to everybody, Jason? There he is. Good guy. Of course, with LSU playing State. Jason, bless his heart, he wants so badly to believe that State can beat LSU in football. And every year he comes to me and he wants to bet on the game. And I've eaten so many nice dinners at Ruth's Chris on Jason's time. So remember, we do still have the bet for this year. So, Monday morning meeting, 10 a.m. gift card. Good. Appreciate it. I assume that we'll get to questions at the end. We'll certainly talk some LSU football. We can talk about the Mississippi State game. I will share a little bit of sort of my path into radio, because I do get asked very often, how do you end up doing what you do? How do you end up as a sports talk radio host? It's not a traditional path. It's not something that most people would go to school thinking it's something they want to do. And truthfully, I got into sports completely by accident. It was never my ambition or my end game to be a sports talk radio host. But my background is probably not that dissimilar from many of you. I was born in New Orleans. I lived in New Orleans East. It was a nice place to live at the time, and then there was a kid in the neighborhood who got beaten up by a gang, and my brother's bike got stolen off the front yard. My parents said, probably time we moved to Baton Rouge. So we did. And that was in the summer of 1989, so we came to Baton Rouge. I went to Most Blessed Sacrament, went to Catholic High, and graduated from LSU. I'm very proud of all three of those. I did have a one-year detour. My freshman year of college, I went to Holy Cross in South Bend, Indiana, which is where Rudy went. Everybody seen the movie Rudy, right? Everybody knows that. I get asked about Rudy a lot. And oddly enough, where's Miss Holland? Miss Tina Holland right here. This is so bizarre. She was the dean of student life at Holy Cross the year I was there. I have not seen Miss Holland in almost 20 years, and she walked up here. And I was going to make all these awful jokes about South Bend, and now I feel like I can't, Miss Holland. But needless to say, I was not a very good student, but I made a 3.95 GPA in my 1 year at Holy Cross, mostly because I never left the dorm because the football, the weather, and the food stunk. So all I did was stay inside and study all day, and I was a fantastic student. So we canceled finals that year. Do you remember that? We got snowed in. They just canceled finals. We had snow up to our way. I'd never seen snow before. But sometimes unanswered prayers are a great blessing, and that was the case for me, because I'd always wanted to go to Notre Dame, and Holy Cross was a feeder school, and my 1 year there told me, you know what, home is where I wanted to be. And I'm so grateful for my time at LSU. While I think everyone here is passionate about LSU athletics, I'm passionate about the university. I had a great experience there. The Manship School of Mass Communication is one of the oldest accredited journalism schools in the country. So to have a degree from the J School at LSU and my 4 years there, 3.5 years there, was a spectacular time in my life. I knew when I was at LSU that I wanted to be in some form of media. I didn't know exactly what path I wanted. And it is interesting that I'm here speaking to you this week because we recognized the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks earlier this week. And I was at LSU when the 9/11 attacks happened in 2001. And as a journalism student, and a very ambitious one, as I think most people in college are, I remember so vividly watching the coverage of those attacks, as everybody did. But for me, I was certainly concerned with the future of our nation and all the suffering and pain that was happening in New York and in DC and Pennsylvania. But at the same time, I was always looking through the prism of those anchors. And I saw Peter Jennings and Dan Rather and Tom Brokaw, and I thought to myself, my God, these men and women, the reporters and the anchors, they're working around the clock amid just blocks from these attacks, this almost unimaginable pressure, yet they're delivering all of this information that's vital to our nation, and doing so in such a steadfast manner. I thought that's what I want to do. I want to be that guy. And I knew, even in school, that I had to get my foot in the door. So I just started sending resumes to anybody, and I got one call back. And I would always tell young people, if you have sons or daughters that are interested in getting in media, encourage them to be aggressive and to seek out opportunities. And I had one call back, and I'll never forget it. It was from a lady named Rebecca Breeding, and she was the general manager of what was then Citadel Broadcasting in Baton Rouge, it's now Cumulus. And Rebecca Breeding called, she said and there was no reason for a GM of a radio group to sit down with me. There was no reason for her to take that meeting. Have you ever done that? You ever just sat down with someone who called you? Never. You never do that. Your office is right next to mine. You never do any of that. I never even see you. You play golf. You play golf all the time. And you go on recruiting trips with Coach O. But I sat down with Rebecca Breeding for about 30 minutes, and at the end, she told me, at the end of our meeting, she told me something that I haven't forgotten, I'm sure I never will, because it's literally why I'm in radio. She said, Matt, we're not hiring, we don't have anything open. But I've always believed, as a manager, you find a way to keep good people, and we'll find something for you to do. So Rebecca Breeding hired me as a promotions intern. I'm sure most of you probably don't know what that is, and that's fine, but you can relate to this. How many people have been driving around on a Saturday, and you maybe pass by a car dealership, and there's the radio station vehicle, and the DJ's out there, and he's got a box of pizza and an ice chest of drinks. Everybody's seen that, right? Before? Right? Everybody? Well, the person who sets that up would be the promotions intern. Okay? So we had a station at Citadel. It was B103. Continuous soft favorites of today and yesterday. The all-new B103. Soft rock, Celine Dion, The Heart Will Go On, and stuff like that. And every time B103 had a remote, the mascot, Buzzy the Bee, went to the remote. Humble beginnings. If you think that you're going to get into media and have an awesome job right out of school making a lot of money, do something else. Because it's not a reality. It is so competitive, and it's so fulfilling, and it's such a fun way to go to work every day. I mean, me and him are jabbing each other because this is the kind of relationship you have in that sort of environment. At its most basic level, I sit on my butt and talk about sports for 3 hours every day. I'm oversimplifying it, but that's what they pay me to do, okay? A lot of people would love to do that job, and I never take that for granted. But finding your way to get the foot in the door, when you get the foot in the door, kick the damn door down, and don't ever let anybody push you out. How do you go from being a promotions intern to doing the 9/11 coverage like I was talking about? That's sometimes just luck. And I was at Citadel for 2 months, and they hired Ed Buggs. Everybody remember Ed Buggs? Ed was a great talent. He battled his demons, but he was a mentor of mine, and I loved him dearly, and Ed died in 2010. But without the opportunity, they hired Ed back, and they put him on in the afternoons for 4 hours, and they asked me if I wanted to produce his show, and that was my introduction into news. And I got to sit in a studio with a man who was brilliant in that capacity. And I got to watch him work for 4 hours every day. And there are still things on air I say every day, and ways that radio mechanics that I use every single day that I learned from Ed more than 15 years ago. And I am so fortunate to have had that opportunity, because I learned more sitting in a studio with him for 4 hours a day than I ever learned by cracking a book. And I'm so grateful for that. But I also, being in news, while I was off and running and kind of doing what I wanted to do, what I was thought I wanted to do, I also got a very harsh reality check. I got some great opportunities as well. 2004, election night coverage, we had Bill Clinton on our air, and I don't care what your political affiliation is. When you have a chance as a 23-year-old to speak to a former president on election night, that's an incredible opportunity. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina comes ashore, and there were many people who didn't have power, so radio was really their only line of communication. We went wall-to-wall coverage. I'm very proud of that. People say, what are you most proud of in your career? For me, it's nothing I've ever done in sports. It's the coverage, those 16 days of wall-to-wall coverage that we did during Hurricane Katrina. I was in studio producing from noon to 7. I anchored news from 7 to midnight, and then I anchored our coverage from midnight to 5 a.m. We were an ABC affiliate. ABC nationally took our coverage, put it on a satellite, so any ABC affiliate in the world could carry our coverage from our little studio at WIBR. I had phone calls from as far away as Australia. I did live reports on the BBC in London. As a 23, 24-year-old newbie, I had amazing opportunities in news. But I mentioned the reality check, and that came very quickly because a few months after Hurricane Katrina, it was November of 2015 or 2005. Citadel flipped formats, gave us 2 weeks' pay, and said, "It's been real. See you later." So what do? I dabbled and cobbled together a living in news for another year, and then I got a phone call from Matt Kennedy. Does everybody know Matt, or know of Matt? Matt did morning radio on WJBO for many years. He was also the program director at JBO and Score, which was a sports talk station. And he said, "Hey man, you know you're not working. You want to board up a show for 2 days a week on the Score at the sports stations?" Didn't have a job, so I took it. Just to have something to do. And that was May. And May became June, and we're getting close to football season. And he said, we got this 1 hour gap in our programming. They had a noon to 3 show, and then they had a 4 to 6 show. And so it was like, you're local from noon to 3, you're local from 4 to 6. Do you really want to go to a national show for 1 hour, then back to it was like, we just got this gap. Do you want to do a daily 1 hour show? Hell, why not? I had nothing to do. So I did. I did a sports show. And we called it The Fastest Hour, and somehow he heard it, because I don't think many people were listening. And I was I did it for 2 years, walking into an LSU game one year in the 2009 season. He grabbed me and said, "I want to talk to you about an opportunity." And that opportunity was that Guarantee was flipping one of their stations and launching an ESPN affiliate and wanted me to host Afternoon Drive. And, I was hosting a 1 hour show that nobody listened to. Of course, I was going to go host Afternoon Drive on the ESPN station and have a steady salary. But little did I know that was starting me on the path of where I ultimately wanted to be. I've never been happier or more fulfilled in a job than what I do going to Guarantee and working every single day. And one of the amazing things about doing sports in Baton Rouge, and I get the question all the time, would you ever leave? Would you ever go to a bigger market? And there's always, I think, that temptation, maybe with ambition, you think you want to grow. It's not that dissimilar from coaching, right? If you get into coaching, you're a GA, and then you take the position coaching job at small school, and then maybe you work your way up to a position coach at a Power 5, and then a coordinator, then a head coach. And it's a process. Like, how mobile are you willing to be? And you know what? At some point, I think I just sat down. I think Gordy and I had this conversation. Like, would you rather be the big fish in the small pond or the small fish in the big pond? And I looked around, I said, man, I love Baton Rouge from here. My family's here, my wife's family's here. We now have a son who has some special needs. All of his doctors and nurses and care team, they're all here. And what's more, sports radio is so fickle in that it's a rarity. It's such a niche play that it's a rarity that you see sports radio win in ratings and have big audiences. There are exceptions, the WFAN in New York, WEEI in Boston, WIP in Philadelphia. In Baton Rouge, that's typically not the case. Markets this size. The difference is, and what is, I find truly unique, if not unique, definitely rare about Baton Rouge, the proximity of New Orleans to Baton Rouge and the population crossover creates a very sort of symbiotic relationship with the two cities for sports talk. You have just as many LSU fans in New Orleans as you do in Baton Rouge. You have just as many Saints fans in Baton Rouge as you do in New Orleans. Now you got an NBA team in New Orleans as well that you can dabble in when they don't stink. Most of the time they stink though, so you don't want to talk about it. You got LSU football, which people are passionate about, recruiting, which people are passionate about, spring football, which people are passionate about. Not to mention, you've got LSU basketball and baseball. I'm going to tell you this. Is anybody in here an LSU baseball fan? Raise your hand. Okay. This, what just happened, that doesn't happen anywhere else. And I get it, like, if you're born here, raised here, you might think that going to the box and having 10,000 people, like, that's how it is. It's not. And what's more, even places that draw well, you can't talk about it on the radio. I'll give you an example. Nashville. Vanderbilt's got a really good baseball program. They've won a national title. Excuse me, sorry, LPV. They've won a national title recently. If you went on radio in Nashville and tried to talk Vanderbilt baseball, they would run you out of town in a millisecond. There's no way it would play. Here, we're doing wall-to-wall coverage, live lead-ins of College World Series and regional games. So even when you get into April, May, June, times of year, which typically in other parts of the country are slow in sports talk, I'm being spoon-fed amazing content because of LSU baseball. So Baton Rouge is such a rare place to do sports talk. And the success we've had at 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge has been remarkable, and I'm forever grateful for it. One of the things also that we try to do on the show, by the way, I should have asked this at the beginning. Does anybody listen to the show? Some? That's okay. It's good. Thank you, Gordon. Again, he's lying entirely. All he does is play golf. No, it's good because the very first day in MassCom 2000 at LSU, Dr. Jules Demacourt, the very first thing he ever did in Dotson Auditorium, big whiteboard on the back, he wrote in giant letters, "Know thy audience." Number one rule in mass communication. You got to know who you're talking to. Regardless, I mean, the message I delivered to Rotary wouldn't be the same message I delivered to a high school class. So, but it was just interesting to see if anybody listened. Our station has had tremendous success, and I'm immensely grateful for the opportunity that Gordy gave me almost 8 years ago, and the opportunity to work for a local company with Guarantee Media and Guarantee Group, because the Foster family are awesome people, and it's a rarity in media today. I'm sure many people saw recently the layoffs at ESPN, right? That was a pretty big deal where they laid off hundreds of people. Everybody saw that or was aware of that happening? When sports media in general grows that big at a corporate level, at some point that balloon bursts, and that's what's starting to happen. These massive rights fees to carry league games, people cutting the cord and going to more digital streaming video. That's a problem. But when you're local, people are always going to want to know the score, right? People are always going to want to know about LSU and Mississippi State, regardless of what else is going on in the world. So I know that I'll always have that job security as long as I'm talking about the things locally that people care about. And unfortunately, in our business, too much of it has grown to the point where it's a big national corporate scene, and many places, the locally owned radio stations just don't exist anymore. So the fact that Guarantee Group remains in Baton Rouge and remains strong is a plus not only for me and for my family to be here, but for our entire community to be live and local, which is rare. So Gordy mentioned, can I mention the thing that's coming, or no? Or we're not?
It's not signed.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Duh. I heard you did it at Bengal Bells. No?
No.
Oh, okay. No? Okay. All right, fine. Got a big announcement coming about show distribution, which is fun. But apparently I can't say it. Gordy went to Jesuit. You can laugh at that. See, they're all laughing at you. Hey, nice tie, by the way. Yeah, you got it. It would take a lot for me to leave Baton Rouge. I love Baton Rouge and I love being here, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here today. I will get, we get 6 minutes. I told you I can talk for an hour. You want to do questions? Okay, I'll do questions. Yes, sir.
So it's not that we're not going to beat Mississippi State. How bad are we going to beat Mississippi State?
So the last 3 years, that game has been decided by...
I'm going to leave now.
The last 3 years, the game's been decided by 3, 2, and 5 points.
Right.
I like Dan Mullen a lot. I like Nick Fitzgerald, although I don't think he's a great passer. I think LSU's defense is going to do just fine. my question and the big telltale this weekend is going to be LSU's offense. Going on the road, young offensive line, some new receivers, new play caller. I think this game is going to be very close. Yes, Jason, I think it's going to be close. You're not going to win. You're going to buy me dinner still. But I think it's going to be a one-score type game, something that's nervous late. If you make the mistakes that LSU made against Chattanooga, there will be tense moments, I think. If not, now if LSU goes and wins by 4 touchdowns, I mean, this team has the potential to win any game on the schedule. Yes, sir.
We've seen Coach Wade is a great recruiter, and we just got another recruit yesterday. How long do we have him for one of the big schools to come calling?
I don't know what school could pluck him away, quite honestly, as long as LSU's willing to pay. I would be more concerned. He's not asking about Will Wade, the basketball coach. I'd be more concerned about if his ambition was to go to the NBA. Because if you think about the schools that would have the means to hire him away, Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, Kentucky, those types of upper echelon schools, they're pretty set with legendary coaches that are content to stay where they are for the duration. So I don't think Will Wade's leaving for another college job anytime soon. If he left, I think it would be kind of like Brad Stevens did leaving Butler going to the NBA. And I haven't talked to Will, so I have no idea if the NBA is his ambition. But I wouldn't worry about another college plucking him away anytime soon. Anybody else? Cool. It's like a record. Yes, sir.
How's your son?
He's asking about my son. He's doing well, thank you. My son Drew was born in 2014, and we actually spent 9 months in Houston at Texas Children's Hospital. So he's had 8 surgeries, and he gets a lot of therapy, and sees a lot of doctors. But I describe it as our normal, and our normal is pretty awesome. So he's a happy little boy despite all of his challenges. And he's my hero for sure. So thank you for asking. Yes.
There was a lot to talk about with the men's sports. Are the women's sports getting your audience also?
When you talk about know your audience, typically what I would look at is butts and seats. So I'll give you an example. If you go to the gymnastics meet, which is incredible what Dee Dee Bro's done, putting 13,000 people. You see a lot of moms and dads and daughters. My audience tends to be men 25-54, so that would be my primary demographic. But when you're Dee Dee Bro and you have that type of interest, it's obviously getting attention. So I would say the challenge for me as a broadcaster is it would be totally fraudulent of me to go on air and try to break down the scoring for the beam. I had no clue. So what I would do is maybe what you would see in the Olympics, whereas people might not know those sports well, they would find a human interest angle to approach that would be interesting. So, having Coach Bro on and talking to her about being at LSU for 40 years, and could she have imagined, I did this last year, could she have imagined 40 years ago what she's seeing now with 13,000 people in attendance? And I think those are the types of things people will gravitate to. So, in a roundabout way, yes.
Matt, quick question. With the guarantee of broadcasting LSU, being an LSU broadcast station, Gordy being employed with the university at the time, is there any pressure that you guys ever feel through LSU relative to your objectivity, criticism of what's going on? Tell us a little bit about that.
That's a great question. I have never once in almost 8 years been told what to say or what to do, ever. So, and that's not the case everywhere. And he and I joke a lot, but it is one of the things that I do respect tremendously, because not everybody in our business has unwavering support from management. And the truth is, if you're being honest but fair, if you're being objective but fair in your opinions, there are going to be times, but there's going to be times you piss people off with your opinion. But if you're willing to criticize when things are bad, that's how you gain credibility in order to praise when things are good and people know you're not being a homer. And I think, based on a lot of the conversations I've had with LSU administrators, I think they do understand that and respect that. But it's absolutely a very real thing in some instances, but not for me. I've never been told what to do or what to say.